From beautiful downtown Sacramento, it's time for Beach Blanket Fort Bingo.
Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. Fort Bingo. Spazzy's got a show when you really want to know what's going on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. Fort Bingo. Art and music, golden blue, and your favorite comics too. Grab a spot and settle in, 'cause it's high time we begin. Beach Blanket Fort Bingo Podcast. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Young at heart. Young at heart.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. My name is Steve Schnee, and before I introduce my very special guests, I'd like to introduce my co-host. You've seen him in action on Axis TV talking about Sid Vicious. You've seen him rock on MTV with the Muffs. You've seen him on this very YouTube channel on his own series, The Boom Boom Room, and you've probably seen him in line at Dinah's Chicken or Jack in the Box. And today, since he is a basics extraordinaire, I will dub him the unofficial fifth Bluebell of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, Ronnie Barnett.
Hey, everybody. Thank you,
Hey,
Steve.
Ronnie.
Thank you, Steve.
Go, Ronnie. Go, Ronnie.
And now,
Oh, Nina.
on this very special episode of Beach Blanket Fort Bingo, I'm more than excited to welcome 4 of the 5 original members of one of my favorite bands of all time. In the early to mid 80s, the Bluebells brought proper guitar pop back to the charts. No punk rock anger, no synth pop gloss, no new wave posing, and no post-punk gobbledygook. These guys just served up great pop songs that still sound fresh and invigorating today. Their debut album, Sisters, has just been rejigged and expanded on CD and on colored vinyl, and is available again for the first time in over 3 decades. It is my great honor to introduce Bobby Bluebell, Ken McCluskey, David McCluskey, and Russell Irvine to the show. Welcome to the Blanket Fort, gentlemen.
Hi, everybody.
Great to be here
Yeah,
with the legendary Steve Schnee.
I was saying before we started filming, there's only 2 bands that made practically every mixtape I made in the 80s, and that was a band called Yachts and the Bluebells. I've been an avid fan for many years, and I think Ronnie, I think, has liked you for about a week. Not really.
Yeah. Who are we talking to? Yeah, who are these guys?
Good move, Ronnie.
Yeah. No. I told him that I'd be interviewing Lloyd Cole and the Commotions. But anyway, anyway, before we chat about the new reissue of the debut, let's go back in time. And when was the band formed? And I mean, were you all school kids, school friends, or did you all answer ads in a newspaper?
Well, David and Ken met first. Obviously. Now, the first person I asked to join the band was David, actually. David was in the band Rodeo with his brother. And I had to start a band. I was more or less embarrassed into it. And I always thought of David. David was like probably 50 when I first saw him play drums with Rodeo. So, and then I knew his brother had gone down to London to work. So David was the first, and then I met Russell at gigs. He was working in Virgin in the clothes shop. He was a very good-looking guy back then.
I was working a punk rock shop.
that was basically how the Bluebells began. Really, just me and David, and then obviously when we take David on, you take his brother on as well.
So,
luckily for us.
Was Raw Deal a punk band?
Yeah, well, Rodeo was
Sounds
a wee
like
punk. Rodeo was a punk band, and we wrote some of our own songs. We did sort of Clash covers and stuff. But David and I were playing with Rodeo in this sort of famous pub called the Mars Bar in Glasgow. It was a big pub. Simple Minds and all these bands kind of started there. And Robert had a fanzine called 10 Commandments. So the first time we met Robert, he was interviewing us for his fanzine.
And the Mars Bar was like the kind of CBGBs of Glasgow.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah.
Wow.
Bands and bands played there. different guises. But we were both at school, Ken and I. So it was like a school punk band. We'd play at school dances, school discos and stuff like
They
that.
were great. They were the first guys that I'd ever met that were actually in a band. I met Ken at a Generation X gig. We used to see each other at gigs, and then one day I bumped into him in town, and Ken was like, come down to the bandstand. My band's playing. So I went down and saw Rodil playing, and I was totally blown away. I couldn't believe it. These guys I knew had a band, and they're brilliant.
So we started off in the kind of punk thing. We started off in the DIY punk school.
Well, when you guys started to come together as the Bluebells. Now, first off, was the Bluebells the original name, or did you go through a list of like 50 names before you settled on that one?
No, it was pretty much the Bluebells from when I first met David and asked David to join. I think we were already called the Bluebells then. There was a thing in the newspapers about Bluebell matches, and the company was closing down. So that the little artwork on the boxes was really charming. So it always stuck in my head. Also, I remember Alan Horn saying to me, make sure your band starts with the letter B, so you're next to the Birds and the Beatles, in the
Buffalo Springfield.
Yeah, so that was a really, I had the Buzzcocks, obviously, so that was a real big thing, was the band was going to have a B in it somewhere at the start, What
was the local music scene like when the Bluebells started? I mean, was there a catalyst that encouraged you to all do this? I mean, was it maybe Postcard Records?
Two bands, really. I'll take this one maybe for a second. Altered Images were the biggest one. We were all big friends with Altered Images. And then I'd met the Postcard lot through the fanzine, so I introduced them to David and Russell and Ken, and they were equally encouraging as Altered Images were. They were a big help, big factor in our getting anywhere, those two bands.
So we used to support them, and they'd give us a load of equipment and stuff like that. They were just a wee bit in front of us,
When the days go by, I will look her in the eye and say, what can I do? What can I say? What can I possibly do for you?
When the Bluebells first formed, was it more of a punky band?
By that time, we'd sort of moved away. The punk thing had sort of done its thing, the punk sort of movement. And then we started watching bands like all these kind of DIY bands experimenting, sort of post-punk. And so I suppose we were part of it was sort of post-punk. It was all part of the culture. We kept certain things from punk rock. We still dressed outside of Oxfam shops and charity shops and flea markets. And we still kind of made things up. It was still very crafty, so it was all sort of big learning curve. It was all part of the thing. And then we started listening to other musics out with punk rock. We always had quite wide taste anyway, I think. And Robert had a very good record collection. And we all really had good record collections because we came from quite musical families where people really appreciated music.
We're all, me, Ken and Dave were basically came from punk. We were sort of Clash, Gen X fans. But as Ken says, by the time we'd formed, quite a lot of scenes had developed. We'd kind of moved out of that. And horrendously, actually, I said recently to Robert that I was actually becoming a new romantic, and Robert saved me.
It's true. I think you call the Pella Band, Steve, by the covers they did at rehearsals. We covered Jonathan Richman and The Cure, so they were the kind of songs that we played in rehearsal. So that's the kind of thing that we obviously we were leaning towards. All of us were into those kind of bands. Subway Sect. So it was like they were the kind of songs we played in rehearsals, and we jammed them for a bit, and then obviously just as we got to learn how to play basically and write our own songs,
And a lot of those punk and new wave bands that had the poppy elements. I mean, the Buzzcocks had harmony.
Oh yeah,
poppy. The Ramones, and real classic pop elements in there, and we loved that. And you kind of took that from punk, but were influenced by other stuff like this. Robert says, Orange Juice, and Aztec Camera.
We used to do a great cover of "Swallow My Pride," which Steve, you've maybe heard on that LA tape.
Yes, that's the gig that I found out was happening an hour before it happened, or an hour after it happened.
I remember we were staying in was it the Tropicana? It was like a kind of rock and roll hotel.
Yeah.
Rock and roll hotel. and Russell stole somebody's cowboy boots. Somebody had their cowboy boots. Somebody left their cowboy boots outside their room, and Russell stole them.
They were the cheap molded.
And
plastic
the best thing was they were plastic.
I've got a picture of them in the bin at the airport as we're leaving.
Oh, wow. Now, when you guys came together, and Robert seemed to be the primary songwriter, but did everyone else intend to write?
Yeah, when that kind of developed. At first, it was kind of Robert's baby.
Mhm.
And then as we sort of started to sort of experiment a wee bit more, I started writing a bit, then David started writing, but everybody sort of contributed. Everybody contributed to different bits, like guitar parts or bass lines or whatever. So we all kind of contribute continuously, really.
Right.
And we all sang, Steve. The big thing was that we all sang. We were one of the few bands that Russell was singing lead song, Ken was singing lead song, I was singing lead song. It was very. We were really going for that. We really wanted to be that kind of group.
The original blueprint though definitely was Robert's. It was the start of the band was basically Robert's songs, and it developed from there.
When we were young, oh so young, we had such dreams that it could mean forever yours, forever mine, forever yours, forever mine.
But Robert, although your songwriting dominated in the early days, Ken's lead vocals were real dominating. Did you specifically write to him, or did he just have the best voice for this song and then you felt more comfortable singing?
He's
this
a
song?
great singer. At the start, when Ken was deciding where to come back up to Glasgow, I sang a lot more, but I had a lot of stage fright, to be honest. I wasn't particularly a performer. I remember watching No Grey Whistle Test when we were on it and thinking, I don't want to do that again, because I felt dead gawky and dead geeky, Whereas when we went on tour with Haircut 100, it was all screaming girls, and Ken really is a real performer. You have to be. You can't be, a shoegazing band if you're going to be a pop band, and it really took a lot of pressure off me. Russell too. Russell was a fantastic performer. It really took a lot of pressure off me.
Yeah,
I think what happened was because Dave and I came from our family kind of like really into folk music, and they would have lots of parties and stuff. So when we were kids, like 9 or 10, David and I would perform at parties and stuff. So I didn't really have that. I didn't really have to think. I didn't think about it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I didn't have to. Oh no, it's a song. It was very natural to me to sing, and of course it was a applause junkie. So yay, yay, and men give you money, like drunk men at parties would give you like a few coins.
Yeah,
it was like, hey, look at me, mommy, I'm dancing. So we always kind of a busker, yeah. So we kind of performed. David and I performed a lot, so we didn't really have that, maybe stage fright or anything like that. We didn't really have that at all.
We were the performing.
Do you remember the Banana Splits? The program, the Banana Splits.
Absolutely.
We were the Dilly sisters.
Robert, did you have to sort of tell Ken like, no, don't sing it that way. Sing it like this, or did it
no, never. Ken, actually, a lot of times Ken and David were helping me sing, because like I hadn't sang before, as Ken quite rightly points out there. I'd never sang before the Bluebells, the Oxfam Warriors, slightly before it. I was really happy when they would teach me how to do harmonies or sing, or Ken would especially always tell me, stand back and sing quietly, right? Because I would sing out, I would belt everything out, and then with 3 songs in, I'd have no voice left, because so all these things were real. I mean, it's a learning curve for me. I mean, even though I was oldest one in the band, I was probably the least experienced musically,
Happy birthday, what more can I say? All my years have passed away, and I had some hope will one day be so
got together, was your goal to sign with a major label, or were you have just been happy to sign with Postcard?
Yeah, Postcard was the first goal actually for me. I mean, it was strange how quickly we learned we wanted to have hit. I mean, our first interview we ever did was we just said we wanted to have hit records, and like we wanted to be the Monkeys, you know, we wanted to be Loving Spoonful. We were doing it on purpose because it was a very goth time, you know, Banshees, and you know, and we were trying to be, you know, we liked. I mean, we weren't kidding on. We quickly saw the songs through whatever reason were really catchy songs. I mean, they just were. It wasn't like it was an intention. But the way we played them together, and also we had a look. I mean, the good thing about the Bluebells for me was we were like the Beatles in the sense that we had a Ringo and a George and a Paul, and each of us all had a personality that people who met us could immediately discern. You know, it wasn't like we were an amorphous group of guys who looked at our shoot. We were very social in Glasgow. We were a big part of the scene. Without being in a band, we would be the scene anyway. You know, we were the people going out. You know.
Yeah. If you watch the Beatles' Hard Day's Night, which was on recently, I'm not talking about musically, but just as guys, we were kind of like that. If you see the way the Beatles sang about and the way people around them enjoyed their company, we were kind of like that.
Yeah,
right.
I think we were the opposite of like, so Glasgow's got this kind of image of hard man and hard city and hard working class. It's kind of like Detroit. It's like the equivalent of Detroit or something like that. Yeah. But it's post-industrial. So it's got this kind of hard man image, but it was quite good to play with that and do the opposite. Do you know what I mean? Do the opposite, sort of play, just have a laugh and just be lighthearted as opposed to this heavy duty shit. Because it was a particularly quite a heavy time as well, politically as well. So, you know, there was all sorts of unemployment and all sorts of different stuff, social problems. But it was nice to brighten that up. Lighten that up or something like that, bring a wee torch or something. Right. Do the opposite.
Amongst all that doom and gloom, it's like we weren't afraid to express like sort of romance, be romantic or be funny, you know, humor.
I'll take the piss out of ourselves. We were never, you know, dark. I mean, journalists and TV companies and radio stations always seem to take to us because we said thank you and hello and we were good. We were good. We were, but you know.
If she'd only open her eyes, she would see what was there and let her care. She's got so much to learn, I'm sure that she can. Or is that too much to hope for? That much is it. Will she always be waiting?
Ken, show them that.
I've just seen this on the wall. This is where Robert got the name from. It's matches.
Oh wow!
So it's a matchbox, and that was the name of the company. The company's called Bryant and Mays, and they made these matches, and they were going out of business. So that's where Robert got the name.
That's brilliant, Ken. I've never seen that before. I wish I had it.
You realize now that Ronnie and I will be getting on the internet and searching for one of those, Ken. One thing that I wanted to show, that by the good graces of Mr. Ken McCluskey, I now own this. But I told myself not to wear it until I actually got a Bluebells interview. And that is my Bluebells.
Well done, Steve.
As we're on collectibles and merchandise, I bet you can't beat this one, okay?
Wow.
Whoa.
It was actually made for a gig, you know.
A one-off.
Yeah.
I think Ken got bored.
Yeah.
He's making another t-shirt.
While we're waiting for Ken, you guys signed with London Records. And was there a bidding war, or was that just...
Yeah.
There was.
So we've got these new boiler suits as well.
Oh my God!
You want a boiler suit? We've got these made.
Costume changes. Like share. I love this.
Ben, is it an all-in-one?
We're going into work. We're going into workwear. Yes, it's got. We're going to get it on the back as well.
Bluebells meet Devo.
I'm fully.
But now we are witnessing.
There we go.
Hey, soldier, tell me now, why will the battle lose the war? Hey, soldier, tell me now, what the hell are you fighting for? I was a
question was, you signed to London Records. Was there a bidding war?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, we quite enjoyed that. But by the time we started getting interest from record companies, we sort of started playing the game. So Sony would come up and see us and take us out for a huge meal, and we were like, yeah, more champagne, please. And so we started playing this game, and for about 2 weeks, every second night we were out, we were lording the champagne. In fact, we were getting fed up with champagne. No, I can't drink anymore. I can't eat anymore. So we took the piss a wee bit. And because we kind of always knew we'd sign to London, because we liked the guy there best, Roger Ames, who was the A&R person. He was realistic. The other guys were bullshitting and saying we were the best thing they'd ever heard, which we weren't, obviously. But
well, no, that's not far from the truth. Not far.
Yeah, but Roger Ames kind of said, "Look, guys, you've got a bit of work to do."
Yeah.
Before we knew that.
He was more constructive. It's not saying you're not really ready to tour yet, but what you need is, so you had a bit of a kind of plan that we kind of went with.
Had you developed a large live audience at this point? Like, how long had you been playing out live before that?
As Russell says, we had a really good, loyal following in Glasgow. It was just our gigs were like parties. Our gigs were like fun. So you got a whole bunch of girls, you got a whole bunch of guys, and everybody was really cool. If people were really going for this kind of happy-go-lucky, sort of laissez-faire sort of attitude. And so we had a really good local following. And then that moved through to Edinburgh, and then we started linking up with bands from Newcastle by sending letters before emails and all that. So we'd send letters to the Dainties. And
Kitchenware Records.
Kitchenware Records, like Martin Stevens and the Dainties and Hurrah and all these bands.
And
the Green-Eyed Children. And Prefab Sprout. So we had a reciprocal thing with them. So they would put us on in Newcastle and we'd support them, and then they'd come to Glasgow and they'd support us. So that was kind of pretty cool. And so then you're going into north of England, that kind of thing. So that was pretty healthy. That was a healthy attitude. Yeah.
And we'd quite often we'd go down to London to support Orange Juice and things like that. So we'd, there was a kind of indie scene that we were kind of part of in a way.
Yeah, so
the big change, Roddy, was when we got offered the Haircut 100 tour, which led to us leaving Postcard because they wanted Aztec Camera to do it. Postcard, they didn't want us to go on the tour, and we wanted to go, and it was us that Nick Hayward wanted to take on the tour. So we just decided to go for it. We decided that it doesn't matter about Postcard because Orange Juice were leaving and Aztec Camera were leaving, and we were getting a lot of interest from other people. So we wanted to do the tour. We wanted to have fun. We wanted to go. Haircut were the biggest band in Britain at the time,
Yeah.
And
it was a brilliant tour for us.
Yeah, it was a fun tour. Yeah.
But the good thing was then because we had that was kind of young, teenage audience, mostly girls, teenage audience. So we kind of had a bit of that audience. And then when we went through with Elvis Costello, we had a kind of older, more mature audience. So we were hitting two audiences at the same time, and they were coming together. And I think that helped us build. Good point, Ronnie, because what Ken's saying is true. And then we realised that the songs were appealing to both audiences, that we weren't losing anything. It wasn't like the girls weren't listening. The songs were our songs were too popular for Elvis. Elvis actually loved our songs. He actually said not long ago on radio that we changed his approach to music, which is a really kind thing for him to say. He realised that 2 chords and 3 chords pop songs had a place because he was getting into he said he was getting into kind of like a rabbit hole of 55 chords in a song. But he just realised, it's better. Sometimes a pop song is a pop song, And
in some, it was a learning curve for us because obviously you were getting, you were watching Elvis Costello's band every night, and
they were fantastic,
great players, and thinking, wow, and absorbing all that,
Yeah, you're right, David.
And a fantastic band as well, and that was more sort of funky soul kind of pop. But and you were absorbing all that, so it was a great kind of mix. And when you're 17 years of age, it was like, wow, I want as much as this as possible.
Middle age has gone and passed. She wonders how long her life will thinking of her toils and strife. What happened to her aim in life?
Elvis produced at least 4 songs that you guys actually released,
Yeah.
but generally as B-sides. Now, were you hoping to do an album with him, or was it just a few songs?
Yeah, he had just come back from America. He'd been in the States for 2 years, just almost 2 years. So he was kind of a wee bit. He wanted to do something different. He wanted to stop touring for a while, and so he took us on as a job. And then halfway through the set when we were recording, he got ill. So we had a couple of weeks with a recording studio with nothing to do really. So we just started recording with the engineer, because the recording studio was booked anyway. And we recorded Kath just with the engineer. And that really seemed to be, that Kath probably is the song that sounded most like us live. You know, there was no added bits. It was just a 1, 2, 3, 4, and we just recorded it flat. And all in the studio live. So that probably represents us, really what we were like as a band, an unproduced sort of thing.
Cat, oh, it takes a lot to make me laugh. Oh, you led me up the garden path. Oh, it takes a lot to make me laugh. And you're not there,
Colin Fielding was Elvis's engineer.
He was brilliant because he added so much as well, and even this confidence stuff with myself, because Colin was a drummer originally, playing with lots of bands. But
What was the band
I remember
name you
being
said again? Was it String? What was
Yeah,
it?
Driven thing.
he was in a couple of prog rock bands. But as a young guy, when you're in the studio and there's all the pressure to, use a click track, which was obviously very big in the 80s, click track headphones, which was pretty alien to me at the time. So you're listening to this, and at the time, you're just listening to a cowbell. He was actually a brilliant mentor, bringing you into that kind of world. And okay, 58 takes later, but you've got it. We'd worked with other producers in some of the early singles, and as Ken says, some of it was really overproduced, and it was losing the real sound of the Bluebells, kind of losing with these dominant producers.
I think also what was important at that time, everybody was using drum machines at that point.
Yeah.
In the early 80s, Depeche Mode and all that sort of stuff. And we were the opposite of that. So we wanted to try and keep it as natural feeling as possible. One of the problems was that we've learned now, a song should speed up.
Yeah.
When a song starts, it should speed up. Dave and I were in a studio with a guy called Callum Malcolm, who's famous for producing the Blue Nile.
And he used to be in the Head Boys.
Yeah, that's right. And he was programming the drums one day, and Dave and I were watching him. He had an 808 drum machine, one of my favorite drum machines. And he said, right, so we'll get to the bridge and I'm going to speed it up a beat. And we get to the chorus, it's going to put half a, you know what I mean? So by the time the tempo changed 3-4 beats, by the time we got to the end of the song, so he was putting it up, he was programming the drums to speed up, the drum machine to speed up. And we were like, shit, I wish somebody had told us that. I wish somebody had told us that. So it was a thing, and it was especially A&R guys, like record company A&R guys, they had heard this new term, BPM. Hey guys, what's the BPM on this? What's the BPM on this? What's the BPM? Because the dance music thing was beginning to start, or all that as well. So everything became about BPM. You're like, what are you talking about?
Now, Forevermore was the first single, and of course, A-side and the B-sides was just an amazing thing. Of course, I got into the band with the second single, Calf, and of course, All I Ever Said, I have to tell you, one of my favorite songs of all time. How the hell a song like that ends up as a B-side is you know,
We made loads of songs like that, didn't we?
Some of our best songs, some of our best songs turned up as B-sides. But all I ever said is the really beautiful, simple. There's real beautiful simplicity about that song.
Yeah.
Just even from the first opening chord,
yes,
straight in with the drum roll, and then harmony straight away all the way through. It's lovely, you know. It's really nice. It's still one of my favorite songs to sing live.
BPM held that one back from being an A-side. That's what
it was wrong BPM.
Now you know,
Don't say Tony.
Everybody Somebody's Fool was A-side worthy, but it was only available on. I mean, I think you guys have released 7 versions of that song, and it was never a single.
Well, that was the song that when Alan Horn, the postcard guy, when we were hanging out with him, and he wanted that to be our first single on postcard, and we did a demo of it at a place called the Hellfire Club where everybody used to rehearse and record, and it was great. Every version of it, I think, is really good, apart from the one that actually ended up on the first album. That was kind of our theme tune, and but we just couldn't. We just ever thought we could ever get it right. You know, that way that something's so precious, but it's not right. You know? But we did some really good. We recorded when we did the Haircut 100 tour and Elvis Costello tour. We recorded every show, sort of thing, over the years, and it was great live. And we just always trying to capture it. You know, just capture the essence of it live. But the nearest we've got to is this new version. Or not new version, but old version that's on the Robin Miller version, which is on the album. Yeah.
Sometimes something that I might just find something good in your way, something good in you. Everybody is somebody, everybody is somebody, everybody is somebody.
When we were going to put this together, we were doing some investigation to see who owned the actual record. We found out there was a company, a French company, so London Records had sold their rights to Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers had bought London Records. Then Sony bought Warner, or a bit of Warner. It was like a total, you know, it was like being a detective. And then we found out that Warner Brothers had sold a huge bit of their catalogue to a French company, and they're called Because TV. So eventually we got a number for Because TV and phoned them up. I went to meet them, and I said, so apparently you own our material, can we have it back? And they said no. so we had to work out a way to get it back. I said, where is everything? And everything's in a huge warehouse. See, when companies buy like another company, they don't know what they've got. They don't know what they've got. They've just got stores and stores and stores and stores and stores of libraries of tapes. There's no names in the tapes and stuff like that. So the woman said, I asked for a spreadsheet. So I got an Excel spreadsheet of all our recordings, and it was reams and reams. There was about 150 somebody's fools on this, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of mixes, different mixes. So I started asking for them. You know, could we have number 5643 or whatever? It's not available. They don't have it. The box is empty. Do you know what I mean? So they're buying loads of shit. They're buying loads of stuff that they haven't actually got. So that was quite interesting doing that investigation. So we managed to track down what they had, but they've got boxes that have got the wrong tapes in them, and they've got boxes that have got wrong information on them and all that sort of stuff. So it's really dodgy. So when these companies buy other companies, they don't know what they're buying. They can buy a container worth of crap. It's like that program we get on TV. It's called, you know, you buy a shed. What is it? You buy a storage facility.
Storage Wars. Yeah.
It's a lot of shit. You know, it's
a gamble.
It's garbage. It's garbage. And the other thing is, they don't even know who we are. About 1985, 86, we went to Germany for 3-4 months, and we had a fantastic time. Germany was a great territory for us. And we came back. Ian Arman had become the head of Warner Brothers. The whole company was changed. All the secretaries were different. They wouldn't let us in the office. They wouldn't let us in the building. They're like, who are you? There's a security guy at the door, like, who are you? And we were like, hey, we're the Bluebells, hey. They're like, whoa, bye. They didn't know who we were. So really, they've moved on to something else. Do you know what I mean? It's really,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
quite bizarre. So the company had changed, and when there's a big movement like that, so an A&R man or a successful person like Roger Ames, he'll take his team with him. So he takes all the secretaries and all the
Yeah,
underlings.
right.
Woof.
Mm.
So it's a complete new company, clean slate. Bye. So that kind of happened to us, you know. So and then you're just a catalog, basically your catalog number.
How come I love them now? How come I love them more? When all I wanted to do when I was old was to walk out the door. You're so young
Here in the US, the first Bluebells release was the 5-track EP.
You liked the guy from Sire Records? He was a good guy, man.
Seymour Stein.
Yeah,
What?
Seymour. Yeah,
Seymour Stein.
yeah.
Stein was quite funny. He came on tour with us a couple of times,
Yeah,
like
he's a
when we
good
were playing
guy.
with Elvis Costello and all that.
His wife is
Wow.
really nice.
He was like a 60-year-old, 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Do you know, he was like an old man, but he was like a wee boy. He was always up to something, you know, like he was always he was good fun.
Seymour Stein had a garage sale. I live in Los Angeles, and he stole these from American Airlines. He had all sorts of. He was selling all sorts of shit that he stole, like ashtrays from hotels.
Excellent.
Fantastic,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. And I own a little piece of Seymour's stuff that he stole.
You've got a lot of good
Ronnie,
stuff there,
Ronnie,
Ronnie.
Ronnie, did he sell a pair of plastic cowboy boots?
So I asked her, do you need a shield from the weapon the elements feel? As all the hail comes pouring down, I've been falling down again, falling down again, falling down. I've been falling down again, falling down again.
In 84, you released one of my favorite songs of all time, what I consider one of the greatest singles of all time, and that's I'm Falling.
Thanks, Stephen. Thank
this
you.
this song starts in one place and it ends somewhere completely different, and it is magnificent. It's like side 2 of Abbey Road in 5 minutes. Was that actually made up of a couple different songs?
Well,
Yeah.
it was one backing track, but luckily for us, Ken had a whole song that fitted the verse. He'd another song that he'd written. And we wrote them separately, right? But when we got to the verse bit, I had left a space. I didn't know what would put in the verse. And Ken said, I have a song that fits this. And it fitted it fantastically, you know. He
It
Ken did
fitted
all the
phonetically. It fitted. It was perfect. So
Yeah,
by
yeah.
that point, we had heard, you know, things like, so this guy Roger Ames, who was an A&R person, he was he had good ideas, but he was also the A&R person for Dixie's Midnight Runners,
Mm-hmm.
and they had Come on Eileen, which is 3 songs.
Yeah.
3 songs. So
That's true.
if you listen to the tempo changes and all that, it's quite obvious that it's 3
Yeah.
songs. But you wouldn't, you know. But so we had that in the back of our minds as well. I think, you know, the idea that, well, you can do that. Why not?
Mhm.
You know, you don't.
Mhm.
Not every song's a great song. You know, loads of people think they've got loads of great songs, but you haven't. You've got loads of
Yeah.
good bits.
It's
Yeah.
You know, like, so people come in and, I teach at a college, and I've got students go, yeah, I've written 500 songs. I'm not, oh, really? Have you? Really? Have you written 500? I said, many of them are good. Many of them are good. What do you mean they're all good? They can't be. Well, they can't all be good. You know, I said, well, let's listen to some of them. You know? So it's that thing. They're not all good. They're good bits. That's a good
Mhm.
bit, and that's a good bit. So
Yeah.
Robert and I kind of worked together on that because it felt natural. You know, Robert was like, there's a hole here, and I'll put this in. It was going on in my head, you know, so it was quite natural.
It's almost like it's 2 voices, you know, and it really changes. It's quite
Yeah.
cinematic. Good. And if you can tell us what the BPM in that record is.
But by the time of Young at Heart and the debut album, Russell and Lawrence basically had gone Lawrence to join Lloyd calling the Commotions. Was that a bit of a shock, or were you all secretly wanting to join Lloyd Cole and the Commotions.
No, even Lawrence didn't want to join Lloyd Cole and the Commotions. That's the truth. You know, I asked the manager first before we were going to. Lawrence was just becoming a drag. No offense to him, but he didn't want. He kicked on about being a journalist, and then we just. It was like make or break for us at that point. But I mean, we regret the decision, especially as far as Russell's concerned. I think Russell knows that and believes us, but we just felt under. We'd been signed for 2 years, I think, and we were just thinking, you know, we're going to have to do something dramatic here, you know, and we were just young and naive, to be honest. You know, the record company wanted to, I think mostly it's to do with money. They wanted to save money by just paying less people as possible. I think that's basically what it was.
Yeah. So we were under pressure, I think, from the record label, and it was an economic thing, and it was also, you know, there was a couple of different factors which were unfortunate. But yeah, it was never the same after that. It was never the same after that, because we were just a bunch of pals, and it was all natural, and we all, you know, bought clothes in the second-hand store, and we drank in the same bar, and we toured. It was what a laugh. It was fantastic. But when that happened, when the change happened, we had to get we got Craig Gannon in. He was a great guitar player and all that, and Neil Baldwin, again, a good bass player and all that. But they weren't from the same background as us, you know what I mean? It wasn't the Powell gang anymore. It was more a professional 9-to-5. It was more like a job.
One of the greatest things I can think of right now is the fact that, and to me, it may be corny, but it's heartwarming to see that I'm looking at 4 members of the Bluebells, and you're all still friends. And that's an amazing thing for all of us out here to experience. So
thanks, Steve. But Steve, even when Russell wasn't in the band, even the weeks afterwards, we didn't stop seeing Russell. If that makes any sense, you know. Russell was never. I mean, Russell, to give him full credit.
It's because I'm mad, isn't it? I'm mad.
He took it with real grace. But I mean, it's if the one thing I could change would be that. That'd be the one thing I would change about the whole thing, you know. Can I just say one thing, right? If we ever had a film about us, right, you'd have me and Ken and David doing Top of the Pops the first time on our own, right? And then you'd end it with all of us being on Top of the Pops 10 years later, you know.
Yeah.
The way it should have been, because when we did Top of the Pops first time and #1 with Russell in the back in the band, that was a really fantastic time. I mean, for me personally, that was a really great night. We had a fantastic night, you know. Always, not just you know, me.
Have you seen Steve? Have you seen things like that? The Top of the Pops performances and stuff like that? Or,
yeah.
Oh
yeah,
so
I'm on YouTube.
Yeah, they're on YouTube, aren't they? Yeah.
So Steve, you know that So Young at Heart became a hit again.
Yes.
You know, when it hard advert, the Volkswagen.
Steve knows
and that
everything.
gave us.
He knows everything about every 80s.
He does.
band.
Yeah, he does.
I know
and everything, and every chocolate bar, crisp packet.
Yeah, see, right now, all of a sudden, Ken's getting really nervous. Like, oh, how do I get out of this? In '84, the album came out. An incredible album, but it was a little schizophrenic because you had the Colin Fairley songs, which I felt were really the best representation of the band. But then you had something like Learn to Love, which is a great song, but it sounds like Culture Club. In other ways, how did you envision the album? Was that the album that you would hope to put out, or was that a record company decision?
Well, I think because the album, right, so we were in a sort of catch-22 situation. The record company wouldn't put an album out until we had a hit.
Right,
So we had like 3 singles, so they weren't going to. So we thought, like all bands think, we've got an album. If we'd recorded the album at the same time, you know, in a 3-week period or a 4-week period, it would have sounded like an album. It would have sounded like the same band. That album was recorded over 2.5 years. You know what I mean? So there was the bands change, your sound changes. You know, you're influenced by different things, especially when you're young, and it's a 2.5 year period sort of thing. So
different producers as well. Yeah.
So your ideas of songs change, and sometimes songs can get stale as well. So if you've had a song like Everybody Somebody's Fool is a perfect example.
Yeah, good point.
It becomes a kind of a weight around your neck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you don't know what to do with it, because you've recorded it 15 times and it's never been right. You know, like, because some A&R guys said, oh, that's not right, it's not punchy enough, or the BPMs aren't right, or, you know, there's not enough cowboy boots on it or whatever. You know, it's all, you know, it took a long period. We wanted to release an album quite quickly, and it would have been great if we did. And ideally, we'd have done it on Postcard Records. It'd have been brilliant. But that never happened. And we also got to know the fact that if you recorded with Postcard Records, you didn't get paid. You didn't get any money. You know, so we were like, ooh,
We're really cool.
you know, yeah, we're really cool, but we don't get paid. So we had to go somewhere where we support ourselves. And once you start taking the dollar, they dictate what you do. Do you know what I mean? The record company dictate what you do. So we couldn't release a record. So it was one of those things. So the good thing about the new version of the album is it's more input from us. That album was the original album was compiled by an A&R person and a marketing guy.
Oh,
when we were in tour in Germany, we had nothing to do with the compilation of the album.
Take me over, sugar babe. Let me cross the river. If you build up what you want, it could stand for longer than a day. Surely it will stand now. Surely it will stand. It will stand. It will stand. Surely it will stand now. Surely it will stand. It will stand.
Sugar Bridge was a great song, should have been on the album. In fact, you could take all the singles and the B-sides and create one hell of an album. But it's been already done. So the Bluebells, in essence, to me, have two albums out. Now, how were you feeling about the album when it came out, the original version?
The original version, I think we were kind of nonplussed because by this point, as we said, it's like 2 years after, we had become a really, really good live band. And the album wasn't representative of the band that are on that album. You know, we'd changed quite a bit. There's one thing on YouTube, which is it's a performance, a program called The Tube. It's a TV program. Yeah. So when that came out just shortly after the album came out, we're completely different. We're a completely different band.
Yeah.
So that album's like what we were. But by the time it came out, you know, it's a classic example. It's a classic. You're kind of fed up with it because you've moved on to something else, you know.
In 1985, okay, we're going to go a little bit beyond this before. Okay, let's wait for Ken.
Sorry, that was the chainsaw was just heating up.
And so now we lie here, secure in the night. Your heart beats so someday you'll be by my side. All I am is loving you, baby. All I am is loving you, baby.
85, you released yet another amazing single, All I Am Is Loving You. And I'm thinking, okay, here's this tougher sounding Bluebells. The next album is going to rock. And then nothing. But I hear that there's stuff in the vaults that should have been your second album. Is that true or not?
There's not much left that's not been heard, I don't think, anymore.
In 1992, there was a CD called Second, released by the Vinyl Japan label. Were those demos that would have made the album, second album?
They were and Andy Paley was involved in it. Andy Paley from the Paley Brothers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We ended up in the Beach Boys, but we did some stuff with him and Chip and Norton, and I really enjoyed that session a lot. But again, they're a company. Strangely enough, for the first time, was saying, "Oh, you know, these aren't poppy enough. You know, we would write. They're actually really good songs. I mean, David was right. David wrote, I think, 2 fantastic songs on 1,000 Times. You know, and,
1,000 Times. Fantastic.
You know, it's all right. I think Ken and Dave wrote together. We were really beginning to get into our stride. The three of us, you know, has songwriters, you know, but they were basically wanting another Young at Heart and another.
But the problem was, going back to that thing I was saying, nobody knew who we were. So we'd be sending demos in. There's like, go ahead and make some demos. And they were, by that point, we were being paid by the month. So they'd give you a check, send you a check, away and write some songs. We'd write some songs, send them down, but nobody was listening to them because we didn't have an A&R person. You know, we had a secretary. We had a secretary who, I think she threw them in the dustbin. So we weren't getting listened to, really, you know. And by that time, they'd moved on. They had other acts. You know, it was a very, very pop. London Records is very, very pop-centric. You know, it was a really poppy record label. So they'd moved on, and I think, you know, it was an economic thing. I think they were like, well, just, you know, keep them at bay sort of thing. They weren't interested in putting any other records out after that, I don't think.
Yeah.
So that's why we started, you know, doing different stuff. Like David and I started doing our more acoustic McCluskey Brothers stuff. Robert started writing for other artists and DJ and stuff. So we got towards the end, we did some great, somebody put up recently photographs of a festival in Skye, which is a beautiful island just in the northwest of Scotland. And it was amazing. We were great. We were really good. I mean, that was kind of our swan song, but it's ironic when you get really good. When you get really good, it's over. You know, it was a kind of strange beauty sort of thing. We'd spent our course sort of thing. We had the beautiful time. We were just wee kids and we were having great fun. That was magic. Then we matured. Then we had to change the band, and then it became a job. But we became great again. Yeah, really great. You know, really great towards the end. And then we weren't getting paid anymore, so we had to start making a living. Really, you know.
Yeah.
Basically, record companies fuck up bands. That's what happens.
Yeah. So they dropped all of you and signed Texas.
No, we never got dropped. We were never dropped because so David and I, we released an album called Aware of All by the McCluskey Brothers, and it sold 2,000 copies in the first week. Pre-orders, 2,000 copies. So it was sold out. We only made 2,000 copies. It was on a label called Thrush, which was our unfortunate name for a record label. But that was so we sold out straight away, and we got great reviews in the NME and all that. And the record company phoned us up and says, "Hey, you're still signed to us. You can't release records." And we're like, oh. So we were signed to them for another 10 years. We couldn't do anything. We were stymied.
Stephen, I got a job with them. They gave me a job, and I ended up working with Pete Tong. You know.
Oh, really?
DJ, and but that was a strange period as well. You know, it was a really strange period for all of us. It was like in a limbo.
But they didn't want you to work and do anything. It's just a storage situation. Cruel, you know, it was awful.
Yeah, you're kind of taboo. You're taboo, you know, that you don't work with this guy, don't like, you know what I mean? But we didn't do anything wrong for them, but they just decided to, if we're not going to have you, nobody's going to have you, you know, that kind of thing.
So did Russell go out and taunt you all the time outside your window and play Bluebell songs?
And his cowboy boots, yeah.
Hey, David.
He was doing line dance. He was line dancing outside. He was line dancing outside doing Achy Breaky Heart. Achy Breaky Heart.
He was living the life down in England. He was living the life, man.
He was in London. He was in London having a great time. We were off in Glasgow.
I was tour managing bands and stuff like that.
We were like, Russell, have you got any money?
Yeah, so Russell tour managed like the Blow Monkeys and all these different bands and the Big Dish.
So slip your reins and shed your chains. You're too wild to tame. What did you say? Ain't got the time. What game is trusted friend.
Let's talk about the changes on Sisters, because I tell people you got to get the new version of Sisters, and they're going, no, I already have it on album. And it's like, no, they've added stuff. They've changed, the version of Everybody's Somebody's Fool.
Sorry, these are remember we were talking about the big container, the big sort of like warehouse full of tapes.
Yeah.
We specifically, we were quite happy with most of the album, but Robert really didn't like Everybody's Sunday's Fool. And I didn't really like it that much. David didn't like it that much. And, we were all a bit. So we changed that. We found a good version by trawling through loads of tapes. And then we started saying, well, maybe to try and make it run like an album, there's always been something missing in it. So by adding Aim in Life and Will She Always Be Waiting, I think, or, new mix, it sewed it up.
Yeah.
It's kind of sewed the album up into like a little story sort of thing,
Yeah.
So that was quite a thing that we were keen to do, to make it feel like, it's us over the period, but make it a story. It missing a few chapters.
Some Sweet Day was Stephen Pastel's favourite song, and he really wanted that on the album,
Mm-hmm.
So he was a big part of the monorail version of the album with the fanzine and all that stuff. Stephen was a really big help with this album, actually, very big help.
Is there a chance we're ever going to hear unreleased tracks? Are you going to try to gather together some of the singles, or is this pretty much what you intended to do and that's it?
Well, we're actually recording. We were supposed to be getting to record just before this new lockdown, some new songs. So Dave's got a few songs, I've got a few songs, Robert's got a few songs. So we're going to go in and record some new stuff and see how it goes.
And Stephen, they're going to bring out an album of Bluebells covers by different bands.
Yeah. So the company last night from Glasgow have asked. There's a band called Muldoons who've done a really good version of Kath. So there's all bands that are on that label are going to do cover versions of
and the Pastels as well.
I think that there's a new band out called the Ronnie Barnett Steve Schnee Project. That would be interesting. But you know what? I see a drummer, a guitarist, a singer. I don't see a bass player.
Maybe the one. Right. Yeah.
I'm in. Count me in.
You're in, man.
I'll get on a plane. We'll go to King Tut's Wawa Hut. Before we end, Ken, can we see you in that jumpsuit again? Can you model that?
Yeah. Let's see.
Thank you. It's very impressive that you still fit in it too. Yeah,
Let's see a full body shot, Ken.
There you go.
Full body shot.
And he's a directional.
Let's see that ass.
There we go. Yes. There we go.
Anyway, that's it for this episode of Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. I'd like to thank my co-host, Ronnie Barnett, and especially 4 members of the Bluebells. You got David McCluskey, Russell Irvine, Bobby Bluebell, also known as Robert Hodgson, not to be confused with Roger Hodgson from Supertramp, and Ken McCluskey. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for your enthusiasm.
Thank you for tuning into Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
When all I want